You're listening to Finn Voices on Healthcare Now Radio, where we highlight and amplify the voices at the forefront of health innovation. Innovation that improves people's lives. Join us for an inside look at the changemakers driving conversation and answering the most important questions in healthcare today.
Welcome to Finn Voices. I'm Beth Friedman, Senior Partner at Finn Partners, and I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. But today we're recording live at CPHIMS 26. Super excited to have my guest, Diana Sage. She is a Director of Portfolio Management at Murj, which is M-U-R-J. Diana, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to Murj.
Very good to be here today. Thank you for having me. I started at a large academic teaching hospital in Kentucky. I worked there for many years helping to implement EHRs and ERP and in various clinical settings, outpatient, in the OR, various places. And I found that I wanted to do something different. So I went out into the consulting world, and I did that for a number of years, implementing EHRs across the United States and in Canada. And I've decided that I wanted to find some passion about what I was doing. And looking on LinkedIn, I found a job at Murj as a project manager, and I started about 3 years ago, and it's a great fit.
Super. So it's funny because you were doing a lot of the implementation of EHRs. I think I shared with you yesterday, back in the day, when my career started in health IT, I was selling EHRs, but back then we called them hospital information systems. So it was a little different terminology, and I remember that big hockey stick, right, when we got the funding and nobody had EHRs or hospital information systems, and all of a sudden everybody did.
Yes.
So that's when I bet you were super busy.
Oh, we were, definitely. It was like a rolling thing. You would put one in and then here would come another one, so we would put it in here, and then it was like, oh, but we haven't touched oncology yet, so then we have to do that. So there was always something to do.
Yeah, for sure. And it sounds like that, what we're going to talk about later too, is you've always sat sort of at that intersection of technology and the clinician.
Correct.
So we're going to chat about that as we get later in our conversation today. But I'm kind of excited. This morning here at HIMSS, Dr. Oz spoke, and I didn't have a chance to attend, but you said you did. Can you tell us a little bit about this session?
It was a wonderful way to start the day. We heard what his passion is, what his goals are, and what he wants to do with this. He was actually here recruiting technical people to see if he could get them to come and join the CMS team. Very, very honest about it. And he has a lot of goals that fit with what we do at Murj. He told us that the number one DRG for expenses in the United States is heart failure, and that's one of our product lines, is to help with heart failure.
Heart failure and arrhythmias, right?
Mm-hmm, correct.
That's what we're going to talk about today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about heart arrhythmias and congestive heart failure and all kinds of heart diagnoses since I've been working with Murj. I've been working with you guys almost a year now.
Yes. And it's a large need. I mean, as we age, and sometimes even when we're younger, we have problems with that. And Murj has found a way that we can help the clinicians and therefore help the patients.
Yeah, so let's get into a little bit about that. Tell us about, because this was all new to me too when I started working with you all, there's cardiac clinics that manage these patients. So it's an outpatient setting typically where the patients present, go in, get checked on, meet with the clinicians there, typically affiliated with a hospital or owned by a hospital, right? So what's the day of the life, like a day in the life look like at a cardiology clinic?
Well, from working with them for the last 3 years, I can tell you that it's a constant decision-making process for them. How do I prioritize what I'm doing, and how do I prioritize that data that I'm receiving from the patient's devices? Is this something that is abnormal? Is this something that I need to tell the provider about? And so we help with that. With the data that they receive, they need to have it real time and at that moment, and being able to look at trends in the past history. So with those pieces of data, they make decisions, whether that's with the remote transmission they receive from the patient's device, or if that's when they're actually interrogating the device when the patient's being checked in the clinic. What do I need to do with this, and what does this mean? Is everything okay, or should I escalate something? Right. So it's a constant thing of decision making and prioritization.
And triaging, I guess.
Yes, definitely triaging.
Wow, interesting. Okay. So so you've been working with these clinics for a few years since you've been at Murj, and your background with EHR implementation. So you can do the tech speak and you can do the clinical speak.
Yes.
And what you shared with me yesterday is that your team is sort of like the bridge between those two. So in doing that, I'm sure there's a lot of lessons learned in working with both sides, right?
Most certainly.
And how to get them to talk to each other. So what are some best practices that you've learned over the years and how to bridge that gap?
Well, you have to seek to understand what is it that the clinician needs. That's really the driver, and that's why the technical team is brought in to help deliver those things. So to be able to talk to the technical team and find out what their capabilities are, and then help bridge that to what the clinician needs. Because many times they're just looking for the key values so that they know what to do with this patient. And the technical team helps to do that, So do I need to have an order to do this? Or do I need to have a scheduled patient with an encounter? What do I need in their specific system with their EHR to make sure that the data comes from those devices that the patients have and gets to the EHR where they can use it and they can make decisions about it and they can document it so that they have that valuable key pieces of information for the patient's history and for their next activity, whatever decision that needs to be made. So it's a fine line to try to help interpret. Okay, so this is what the provider needs. How are we going to get that technical piece in there? What does that mean that I have to do? What does my HL7 message look like? What pieces of fire can I use? And these are all technical terms, but that's what the technical team does. Is they find a way to use the tools that they have to get what the clinician needs when they need it.
So that's the technical side.
Yes.
Let's talk about the clinical side. What the clinicians need, as we talked about, to make these decisions, to triage these patients, to figure out who needs what care. Do they ever trip up on the tech? Like, is it hard sometimes for clinicians to use some of the technologies? What are some of the lessons learned to get them, I guess, more comfortable with the data?
Many times when we come into a place with Murj and our software, they really don't know how to use it, and so we have to find a way to educate them. Sometimes they're moving from paper and coming to us, and that's a huge
still paper,
wow. And that's a huge learning curve. But then other times they're just moving from another legacy system to us, and it's what are the nuances that they need to know. But really, they're looking for those value sets, the discrete data that they need. They get a PDF out of the interrogations, but do you want to scroll through a PDF to do that? You really want those key pieces of data that you need, where you can put them at, and you can trend them. So that's really what they're looking for. And based off what their needs are, how many impressions would they like to have? What are the key value sets that they want? Then the technical team can come and deliver those.
And it's not just clinicians, right? And not just EPs or cardiologists or whatever, the cardiac techs, but it really is sort of the billing people too, right?
Yes.
The revenue cycle side.
Yeah, we have a pretty large audience of people that we work with, that we educate, that are using our platform. So we have the cardiologists, like you said, we have the device staff that actually work those transmissions, but we also have the key drivers of the clinics. The revenue people, the people that want to know what the data looks like so that they can then drive the billing, which is very important because if they don't have that, then they're not going to be in existence.
Yep, 100%, right? No mission, what is it? No margin, no mission?
Exactly.
And and I know cardiology, to your point, where Dr. Oz said this morning that heart failure is the number one DRG. Cardiology is a huge profit center for not only, service line, but a huge profit center for a lot of hospitals. So making that more efficient in every way we can.
Right.
Is probably pretty strategic for most organizations.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Murj can do in our integrations with our EHRs is we can help deliver automated billing, which with interval tracking, which is what we do in the remote monitoring, is they have a 31 or a 91-day period of time. That's hard for them to keep up with manually, and Murj can help automate that so that they don't have to worry about that piece. They can just do what they're supposed to be doing, clinical work.
Care for the patient, right? Let's get a little in the weeds on the data side, since we both have these EHR data backgrounds. So one of the things I've also learned, and this was eye-opening for me when I went to the HRX event last year in Atlanta, was all the different devices, which we know there's a lot, right? The pacemakers, the Holters, just so many different cardiac devices. All these different device manufacturers have different data standards, different data formats. It's quite, I don't want to use the word hodgepodge, but it's quite a variety, right, of data that's coming in. So what other challenges are there? Because it seems like getting to that easy integration, better interoperability, it remains a challenge in this particular sector of healthcare.
It does. We do have very different abilities with the different devices, but we also have different abilities with what we can actually integrate within the EHRs. They each have different capacities that they can do. But with those device vendors, we try to come up with a standardized way that we can do it. It's difficult when they're all different and they have different ways that they do it. So, this one may have a certain way that they send data across, and the other one you have to do something more manual to do it. So we find ways that we can teach the team. With this process, you're going to have to do something more manual, like use a USB to download a data file and then put it into your EHR, where others, they have ways that they can use like an iPad or something where they can do it. So it is challenging, and it depends on what they have in place.
And that's a challenge that the clinicians don't want to hear about that, right?
Oh, no.
They're like, we just want IT to work because we need to see everything together. And I bet sometimes it's hard to explain to a clinician why one patient's device is different than this other patient's as it relates to that incoming data.
Correct, because some takes a few more steps, a little more time, and that's very valuable to them. And they want less steps and less time.
Right.
And sometimes we just don't have the capacity to do that based on what the technology has available.
We talked about sort of a day in the life of a cardiac clinic today. Let's future cast. Tell me, in an ideal world, what does the day in the life look like for that clinical person who is monitoring all these patients? What's the ideal scenario for him or her?
I think they would like to start their day by knowing what's the highest priority thing that they need to address. And if they have that, it's because they have the data that they need. It's discrete data where they can trend and they can look at the outliers. And if we had all of the device vendors that would give us the ability to do that, would come in saying, hey, this is out of range, then we would have the ability to trigger them, to alert the clinical team that that's what they need to do. So I guess the ideal would be discrete data delivered in time, and then also with the ability to trend the data and look at those key values that they need. I think that would be the wish list.
Yeah, for sure. And then I assume easy access to other things in the EHR that might be relevant to that patient.
Right. Yeah, so they can look. And that's one thing Murj does, is we bring that all to the platform so that they see, no matter what device it is or where they are in the diagnostic treatment process, they have that data that they need.
What about the patient? Right, the patient at home with the pacemaker or the monitor. What's the ideal world look like for the patient?
That they don't have to really think about it, that there's not a lot of stuff that they have to put into it that just happens, and that if they do miss something, that they're triggered to do it. We have a thing called text reminders, so if you didn't send your transmission and you needed to, we'll remind you that it's time for you to send it, so that you stay in that clinical track and that we know exactly how you're doing with your device.
Yeah, for the patient.
Yeah, for the patient.
Because I bet it's pretty stressful for patients, right? My sister, she's right around 60 and just had a bout of atrial fib and had to be on a device. And they have her on medication now, so it seems to be under control. But it was pretty stressful for her.
It is stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to think that things aren't going well for you. And then if you have this, it's something that you have to stay on top of.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that your team is staying on top of this too, your clinical team.
Yes.
And there's those trust there. You know?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, exciting times. Let's just wrap up by kind of going back to where we started. What have you thought about HIMS this week?
Oh, HIMS has been wonderful. I mean, there's so many key topics. AI, of course, is the hot one, and interoperability, and that's right where we're living right now. So we know that we're in the right spot with Murj, but so many challenges and so many opportunities that you can see just by walking the expo floor.
Yeah, I know you guys hosted the Interoperability Summit here.
Oh, we did.
So thank you for hosting that.
Thank you. I mean, it was a wonderful day. A lot of great ideas and synergy
Yeah,
with
for
teams.
sure. And I know there's a really focus too right now on not just thinking about interoperability, but thinking about that. Where is that data coming from? What's the quality of that data look like? So
Right.
I know that's an area that you guys focus heavily on as it relates to the cardiac patient.
Right. We don't want the noise in there for the clinicians. We want them to have the distinctive things that they need to have, and I think that's part of what we do with our interoperability.
Reduce the noise.
That's right.
What do you think we'll see at HIMSS 27? Any predictions on what would you hope to see at HIMSS 27?
I'd like to see more use cases of how people are actually using AI and interoperability to make things better. I think that sometimes we get buzzwords and everybody's hot on the topic, but seeing it implemented and seeing what the value of that is, I think that would be wonderful to see more of that.
Yeah, so almost seeing those use cases real world, lived out, demonstrated in how it's actually working.
Yeah, because a lot of people are saying this is how we plan to do it.
Right.
But we haven't
right.
necessarily seen this has been the successful outcomes of implementing it.
So it'll be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a lot of good speaking sessions, I would think, next year on use cases, like proven use cases. I would hope to see that. Like, I think for me, always the proof is in the outcome.
Definitely.
In a real world setting,
Yes.
right? Not just in the development lab.
Right, yeah. I mean, and I think that so many people and organizations will gain from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I have been today with Diana Sage. She is a Director of Portfolio Management at Murj. And you can reach Diana on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And also learn more about Murj, which is MURJ, at the company's website, murj.com. So Diana, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me today. It was a pleasure.
This has been Beth Friedman, Senior Partner at Fin Partners. I thank you for listening to Fin Voices, where we talk about health information, health innovation, and all the technology in between. Until the next time, wishing you all the best in health.
Fin Voices is brought to you by Fin Partners, a global marketing and communications agency working across industries and services. Whether inside our walls or on the front lines of health transformation, we stand together to create meaningful and measurable impact for the world around us. Learn more at finpartners.com and follow us on LinkedIn at FinPartners.